Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to see you. And today we are going to talk with you about the way to establish connection with our potential students. We are going to talk about the way to set report. And this is something that is of the utmost importance for teachers because very often we do not understand why some teachers are able to meet their students once and then they are able to build really long-term cooperation and other students just can't. They have one trial lesson and then their students never come back again. And it's not about them being bad teachers, it's more about them being able to set a kind of a connection with your student and to demonstrate to their students that they really understand what they're going to do together. And that is why today we are going to talk not so much about teaching, because usually teaching webinars are about techniques. Do this, don't do that, and as a result, your students will know English perfectly. But today we will talk with you about communication. And we will talk about speaking and listening, and why in order to set a connection and form some relationship with a person, you must be able to listen to this person well. And I really wanted to invite an expert who can talk to you about this topic. And I'm very lucky because I know an expert who I would like to teach you. And I'm also lucky because I have been working with this person for many years now. And he's my friend and he's my coach. And this is a person who really taught me listening and really influenced the way I speak not only in English but also in Russian. And I'm really grateful to him for that. And he's a very special person to me because he has revealed the whole new world of the way to communicate with people. He's extremely good at it because he has been working with this topic for more than 30 years now. And he has a very special attitude to language and to words in general because he's not only a coach, but he's also a talented writer who has written dozens of books, and some of them are very successful. And I really wanted you to meet this person, and I really wanted him to share with you his approach to establishing contact and relationship with people. And so here he is, my friend and my coach, John Milton Fogg. And this is the person with whom we are going to have today's webinar. So, John, you're welcome.
Hello.
Good. I wanted to talk to you about listening and speaking, and I know that this is one of the key areas of your interest in life. How did it all start? How did you become involved in this you know, realm of listening and speaking and communication with people?
Oh, long ago and far away, I got involved in direct sales and network marketing. And I was a professional marketer. And so I wrote a sales letter, and I had tremendous initial success. I sent out 160 some 5-page sales letter about a health product. I was well known in the natural and health field in the United States, and I sold 125 plus people products off that mailing. Now, the thing about network marketing is it's all about building a team of people, a network organization. And I came against my first obstacle, which is the only people who could build a team the way I was doing it were professional marketing people like me. And I maybe had one of those. I brought 40 some people into my organization real quick, but nobody knew how to do the business. So as I began to dig into working with people, I realized something, and I'm not boasting here, as you'll see. The fact of the matter is, I didn't particularly like people. I had a small circle of friends, and we felt and we thought very similarly. We got along great, but the rest of the world, I just couldn't care less. And I realized that here I was in a business that was all about relationships, and I was no good at relationships unless I was with like-minded people who liked what I liked and loved what I loved. There wasn't a possibility. And very early on, I stumbled into a course called The Empowerment of Listening with Dr. Carol McCall. And this is back in the early 1990s. And Carol became a mentor and a friend. And eventually I ended up on stage with Carol, co-presenting her workshops. I was probably one of her best students. And so I learned to connect with people based on listening. Now, there's a certain kind of listening, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about, which I call listening for values. Values are those things in people's lives that are most important to them. They're the heart of the matter in everything and anything. And when you really listen to people, you are listening for their values. And you can when you connect at the level of values with people, that's how you move from relationship, which is pretty much, hi, Mila, my name's John. Good to meet you. We have a relationship. Then you grow that relationship into a friendship, which I say is falling in like with each other. And then if that relationship, friendship, as it grows, and the other person knows whether or not a real partnership is possible. And by partnership, I mean student teacher, someone, it becomes a customer of yours, even in a romantic relationship, that's a partnership. And so you come to a point where you realize, gee, I want this person as a partner. And you can offer that because you know enough about her or about him to make that connection. So that's where I started to learn listening. And the speaking part, which is, we can talk about listening, and pretty much nobody's going to disagree. Everybody's going to say, yes, I understand. I can listen better. Listening is powerful. Listening is healing. Great. But unless you know how to ask questions to get people to open up and to get into conversation, what are you listening to? So you need both speaking and listening. They really are a marriage, a pair that come with each other.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I want to ask you one question, which I think all teachers will understand. Very often, when we have our trial lesson and our students come to us for the first time, the problem with this lesson is that we can't really teach. Because, first of all, we do not know whether there will be any continuation, and we can't really build this progression. And usually, in teaching, every class is a kind of a progression. Yeah, so we always anticipate the next step, and we create the basis for it. So, when we have a trial lesson, we can't really do it. But we must give our students confidence that they will be able to grow with us and to improve their skills, their language skills with us. We must understand what their needs are. We must understand what their fears are. And normally we only have 30 to 60 minutes for that. Can you please give us um, some advice on how to do that quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to, there's more to say, but I just learned a brilliant idea, which I'm going to offer and have your people think about it and try it on, and you tell me what you think. And this is an idea that today is being used by what in America we call the Fortune 50, which are the top 50 corporations in the world. They're using this process. And unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the firm that offers it. But here's what you do. After hi, hello, how are you? With your prospective student, you say, look, I want to tell you something right now. And that is that when we're done, I'm going to send you email a very short 3-question survey for you to be able, it's an evaluation, for you to be able to give me feedback so that I know how I'm doing and I'm getting better. It's a very simple survey. It will take you only a few minutes to do. And one of the questions on the survey is, did you get your questions answered? Do you have additional questions or concerns? And so I encourage you in our conversation today, please, not to step over any question you have. Make sure you ask me any questions you've got, any concerns you've got, anything that's a little confusing to you or not clear to you. So are you willing to do this survey after we're done? And I can't imagine anybody saying no, right? Now, look what you've just done. You've set up this conversation with them being focused on understanding that, number one, you want their opinion of the conversation. You are very serious and sincere about wanting to help them because you're asking for their feedback, very first thing. Number two, you've set them up so that they're not going to step over their questions. They're not going to leave the question there because they're a little embarrassed or they think it's inappropriate. You've made a wide open invitation. Please ask me your questions. Share with me your concerns. So number one, they get your sincerity. And number two, you've set them up to get their objections, their questions and concerns answered in that 30-minute call. I think it's absolutely brilliant. What do you think?
I agree with you, and I have never done it before. And this is probably something that I will seriously consider doing. Yeah. I encourage them to ask questions, but I have never talked to them about this survey, and I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it really is. And then you say, look, it's only 3 questions. And the first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being couldn't be better and 1 being horrible, I'm asking you to rate the quality, to rate your experience in your initial conversation with me, 1 to 10. Boom. Second question is about any of the concerns that were not answered. Do you have any concerns that were not answered? Then the third one is, would you recommend me for a friend in teaching English? Would you recommend me? Just those 3 questions. That's what goes out in your survey. So you're going to get useful feedback, absolutely. But even more than that, from a sales point of view, you've really connected with them, made that 30-minute call a really different deal than normal. Now, there are things to say about what conversation to have in that 30-minute call. And basically, that conversation is one where you explore that person's values. You want to learn their values. You want to learn what's most important to them. You want to know, for example, what is learning English or becoming better at English. Why is that important to you? What makes that important to you? There are things you want to know, and you want to get to know some of the values they have so that what's most important to them in their lives. There are people who want reasons for speaking English. They want to be able to help their kids learn English. They want to use it for employment, for their business. They have their reasons. You want to know those reasons. You want to know the things that are most important to them in their lives. And it's always a conversation, and it's always about you being, if there are 2 rules for this initial conversation, and truly any conversation, but if there are 2 rules for this initial conversation with a prospective student, it's curious and candid. Curious and candid. You want to be curious about her, about him, and you want to be candid. You want to tell the truth. Don't evade anything. If they ask a question and it's kind of like it hits your ego, let's say, how good are you? How much experience do you have? You really know what you're talking about? Be totally candid with them. Tell them the absolute truth and let the chips fall where they may. Because your sincerity and your honesty, your authenticity is most important to them. They need to trust you. When you get off the phone with them, you want them to have 3 things: know, like, and trust. You want them to know about you and what you're offering. You want them to like you. You want them to trust you. If you've achieved a degree of know, like, trust with them, then you've probably got a student.
I had this experience once many, many years ago when I was asked a question about my experience, and at that stage I didn't have any. And it was so scary. Like people asked me, what experience do you have? And I'm not good at lying, so I couldn't say anything. And then I said, I have none, but I have a lot of enthusiasm. And they started laughing. And actually, I got that contract and I taught them for 2 years. It was a corporate group. But that
So,
was probably one of the most, the scariest moment in my life.
Here's the possible answer. So somebody asks you about your experience, and you say, truthfully, it's not much at this moment. But two things are important to me. One is I am absolutely determined to be the best English teacher around. And number two, with that determination, what I've done is to have teachers who are teaching me, and they're the best teachers in the planet. And I work with them a number of times each week to get better and better and better at this. Let it be. Let it be. Anybody who has a head and a heart hears that, and your stock goes up. So curious and candid, it's magic. It just always works.
What's the easiest way to know somebody's values? Because very often when they come to us and they say, I want to learn English, we usually ask them why. What's the reason for that? Why do you want to learn English? What do you want to do with it? Why is it important for you? And very often people do not know. They say, well, I just want to speak, or well, I just want to travel, or I just need it for my work. Then, in the course of time, you realize that it's not exactly true. They just give you some reasons which are popular reasons, because very often they can't explain it to themselves. They feel something inside, but they do not know how to put it in words. What can we do to ask them real questions that will make them open up and talk about the reasons that make English so important in their life?
Look, any initial question will do. The weather, COVID-19, politics. There are some subjects that it's good to stay away from. Like, I don't do politics, I don't do religion, and I don't do marriage or parenting. I try and stay away from those because, those are like, oh, scary. All right. But why don't we do a demonstration? You up for that?
Yeah, sure.
This is my favorite. And for your listeners, for the people who are here today, Mila and I are just going to demonstrate a conversation. And what I want you to do, who are observing us do this, is listen for Mila's values. Specifically, when you're really listening to somebody, you've got no agenda other than listening. Your attention is fully and completely focused on them. And baby, that's hard work, because you've got all these thoughts and evaluations and blah 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 going on in your head, and you got to stop those and set them aside to truly focus on the other person. But you can always set an agenda and stick it in the back of your mind. And so what I'm asking you to do is have the agenda to listen for Mila's values. All right, here we go. So Mila, where do you live?
Well, now I'm living in Kaluga. It's a city not very far from Moscow, but originally I'm from Ukraine.
So how long have you been in Kaluga?
I think I have been living here for a couple of years now.
A couple? You mean just a few?
Yeah. So I think 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. What brought you to Kaluga?
Oh, that's a very long story. So I had to move because there was kind of a military conflict in the region where I lived, and my husband is Russian, so I came to Russia with my kids. And then it was just an accident. My husband was offered a project, and we moved from Moscow to Kaluga.
So you moved from Ukraine to Moscow, Moscow to Kaluga.
Yes, exactly.
And what got you to move there was security? What? How would you describe that?
Ah,
Safety?
on the one hand, it was safety, but on the other hand, it was an attempt to preserve my family because there was no other way for me to stay with my husband. He couldn't come and live in Ukraine with me. So I had to make a choice, and I chose to move to Russia to stay with him.
Got it. So, what do you like most about Kaluga?
It's a nice city with a very specific atmosphere. It's not as hectic as Moscow, but it has many nice places to visit, and people are nice. They are usually much calmer than in Moscow, much more relaxed, and never in a hurry.
You mentioned specifics, so you spoke about kind of like the pace of life was more calm and easy. Were there more specifics that you like about it? You said nice places. Are you speaking of restaurants or parks or what?
I'm speaking of different places of interest more connected with cultural life. For example, there is a nice theater which is something like 500 years old. There is a nice museum. There is a nice, well, they call it a cultural center. It's very modern, was opened a couple of years ago. And now they have their different exhibitions and classes for children, classes for adults. You can come and learn pottery, for example, if you want, or painting or whatever. Yeah.
So do
So
you take advantage of those things yourself, or do you have children?
yeah, I have 3 daughters, and but I also like doing these things myself. So I really enjoy pottery and painting and different arts and crafts, and this is something that I find easy to do and very invigorating. When I have time for such hobbies, I feel happy.
You say when you have time. Do you have the time for that?
Sometimes I work a lot. I love my job. It's not a problem. I really love what I do in this life, but sometimes I wish I had a little bit more free time.
Got it. All right, let's stop there. That was in minutes. How long was that? 3 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, something like 3 minutes.
And so, for those of you who were watching and listening to Mila and I, in the chat, tell me one of Mila's values. Tell me one thing that's important to Mila in her life. So we've got family, marriage, relationships, safe and cultural environment, self-development. Stop for a second. Where did you get self-development from? I didn't hear her say self-development. What's that lady's name?
Natalia.
Natalia.
Mhm.
Where did you get self-development from? Mila did not say self-development.
Well, Natalia is right to a certain extent. Yeah. So she's a good guesser,
No,
I
no,
think.
excuse me. That's the point. She guessed. Now,
Mhm.
Natalia, answer me this. Is self-development important for you? Is that one of your values? So, did Natalia answer me?
No, but yes. Okay.
Oh, stop with the
Yes.
probably stuff. Come on, we're talking about learning how to speak and listen. Is self development a value of yours? Yes or no? Niet or da? Yes. Now, this is something we do all the time. We start talking with someone, we start liking someone, and then we lay our values on them. We assume that they're good people, we're good people, they've got our values. No, do not do that. And if you have the thought that one of Mila's values is like yours for self development, here's what you do. Mila, is self development important to you? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is self development to you in your life?
I would give it a 10. It is important.
Now you know. Not only now you know, but when you use the 1 to 10 deal, you know it's way up there with oxygen. Now, others of you said family, absolutely. Safety, security, absolutely. But notice when she spoke of safety and security, it was important, but she wasn't a Syrian refugee. She wasn't fleeing for her life. She was going someplace better. Her husband couldn't come to Ukraine, so she was making a compromise. So her willingness to be flexible, that's a value. Now you know about 5 or so of Mila's values. And as you are speaking to her about what it is you're offering, you take the values that she's got and you come back to her, connecting her values with what it is that she would be doing with you in an English class. And one of the things to note that I didn't see any of you say, and I may have missed it, was time. She said it softly and gently, and I may be taking something external to this conversation that I happen to know about Mila because we're very close. We speak every day. We do a process together every day. But that time thing, she wants more time. Yeah, she likes the pottery classes. Yeah, she likes the cultural institutions. We didn't even get into how much she likes sports, exercise, swimming, running, all that stuff. And we would have had we continued. But her time to do it, and with many of the people that you will be talking to, they are looking, everybody wants more money. So, English may be, is this for a vocation for them? Is their desire to learn English? Does it have any connection with earning money? Does it have any connection with creating more time? Such as if they worked for them, if they were teaching English themselves, if they could have an ESL, English Second Language business, they could do that from home. That would help create more time. They could be with their family more. But you need to know which of those things is important, because somebody may not care about more time with their family. I know parents who would like a lot less time with their family. So this is the kind of things you need to know by asking questions, and your questions always come from your listening. Where do you live? What's it like there? How long have you been living there? What do you like most about it? What brought you there? And all of my questions for Mila came out of what she said. Not out of my own head. I made them come from what she was telling me. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Yeah, thank you. How can we approach this issue of reasons for what they're learning English? I usually do it through vision. When people can't explain it to me clearly, what they need English for, And this is probably 90% of the cases. They simply do not know. They say I need English, but they are absolutely unable to explain the reasons. I ask them, okay, tell me about the day when you know English perfectly. Let's imagine that you know English to the level you want to know it, and we are now with you in that time in the future. What are you doing with your English? And I try to listen carefully to what they say. What do you think of this approach?
I think it's perfect. And again, I love using the 1 to 10 scale, because it really helps make things clear and specific. And so, and your question of saying, all right, let's say you're out in the future and you're now speaking English on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being couldn't be better. You now speak English as an 8. You're a solid 8 in your command of the English language. What's going to be most useful for you when you can speak English at that level? That's one question. Another one, which is, what will be most meaningful for you when you are an accomplished English speaker? And questions like that, or those specific questions, will get you the answer of what's the reason. And it's really, really important for you to understand the reason that your student wants to learn English, because your job is to help them learn English in the best way for them. And if they want to learn English to get on an American dating site and meet new people, men or women, that's one kind of English. If they want to speak English and just be able to sit in a cafe, when we're allowed to do that again, to sit in a cafe and have a conversation with English speaking people, and really make a connection with them. If they want to do business, if they want to travel, find out what is the reason or reasons, what's going to be most useful and valuable, what's going to be most meaningful for them. And that's something you should hit in your initial conversation with them, because when you can connect, when you can identify their reason, their why for learning English, and you can begin to focus your conversation on how you can teach them to achieve that objective, you're in much better position to create a student and have greater success with that student while you're teaching.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to say something, commenting on Olga's idea that teenagers study English because they are told to. First of all, Olga, I disagree. Teenagers are very different, like old people. And this is why I believe this is a kind of an overgeneralization. But on the other hand, yes, we may face this situation. They study English just because they are told to do that. But then we have with teenagers and with kids, we have a particular responsibility as a teacher. We are responsible for helping them to see the connection in between English and something they love. And it may seem a kind of a trifle for adults, but for them it might be something extremely important. For example, currently I'm teaching a group of teenagers. They are 12-year-olds and they dream about becoming successful YouTube bloggers. And yes, to a certain extent, I manipulate them into learning English by using this desire and by telling them that the English speaking audience in YouTube is by far much larger than the Russian speaking audience. And if they really want to become successful in blogging, they must be able to speak English. Because on the one hand, they will be able to reach more people. On the other hand, they will be able to learn more because everything that people know about blogging and the internet and marketing online comes from the United States. And I talk to them about these things and I tell them about, for example, like traffic and conversion summit in San Diego, where all people go to learn how to promote their videos and make them more successful on YouTube. And if they're good at what I want them to do, then every month we make a video in English and upload it somewhere. And this is a huge motivation because when they are very young, they don't really see these connections. And I think that a part of my responsibility as a teacher to show them that there are options and ways and opportunities. And it is important not only for teenagers, but it is also important for young adults. I have a lot of students aged 20 to 24 who are not technically teenagers, but they are still very young. And sometimes I understand that this is my responsibility just to show them different options. And sometimes they come and say, okay, I want to learn English because I feel stupid when people talk in English and I can't get into the conversation. And then in a couple of months, they start thinking about getting a degree in English, and then they start seeing different employment opportunities abroad, and then they start thinking about taking IELTS to move to New Zealand to do a course in exercise science. And this is a real example. This is one of my students who is preparing for this exam now because he wants to get his master's degree in exercise science in New Zealand. And this is why we have to talk to them about values and dreams and things they want. Because if we don't do that, they will never know why they need English. So,
And besides, we should all hurry up because within 5 years we'll all be speaking Chinese anyway.
John, I think that partially the success of English is so huge because it is much easier than Chinese, you know. So if we compare different languages, uh, English is clear, concise, and pretty easy to learn. Yeah, because Chinese is a totally different pair of shoes. I don't really believe that people will speak Chinese, so massively in 5 years and even in 20
I
years.
think that the thing, Mila, that in my experience has driven English the most is the internet.
Yeah.
So whether it's Instagram or YouTube or all of this stuff over the internet, you know, English has become the internet's predominant language, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, dear friends, well, I think that we have told you everything that we have been planning to tell you today. And this is not everything we can tell you, and we will continue. Next Friday, we will meet again, and next Friday, we will talk with you about self esteem because this is probably the biggest problem teachers have. We are very self critical. Well, 99% of teachers who I know are very self critical. It's good on the one hand because it helps us to become better. But on the other hand, it makes us terrified when we hear the word competition. And it makes us terrified when we think that we are not as good as other people. So we will talk a little bit about self esteem, and I will also ask John for some tips about changing the situation when we feel very low about our own abilities and qualities. If you have any questions that you want to ask, you are welcome to do it either right now we will be happy to answer them. Or you can comment on the posts on Facebook or on other social media, leaving your questions, and we will be happy to answer them. And now, what I would like you to do is to give us one takeaway that you're going to have from today's meeting. Please tell us briefly in our chat what is the thing that is the most meaningful for you? What is something that you have learned, or maybe you have confirmed, or something that you have discovered today during this meeting that is valuable for you? It's a very slow chat. One of the problems with this webinar room is that it's okay, but the chat is very slow. Hmm. Okay.
Dunning-Kruger effect?
Mm.
¿Qué es esto?
This is a kind of a psychological effect about self-criticism and thinking that you can't do things that you really want to do because you're not good enough. Yeah.
Ah, so as Natalia said, self-esteem.
Yeah. Okay. For Tanya, it was motivation for students. Hmm. Okay. Uh-huh. Good. Lara has confirmed her idea about values and the driving role of values. I also agree that everything comes from values. Everything we want to achieve. Yeah.
Galina, thank you. I just heard about this from my son-in-law on Wednesday. I'd never known about it before, and it's just brilliant. Mila and I use, and we will be teaching you and showing you how to use an assessment tool. And the value of the assessment tool is it makes very clear where you're at. And the one thing that you want for your students that you need to be absolutely determined, completely passionate about is their progress. What you want for your students is consistent progress. In order for them to know that, they're going to need to do an assessment of how they're doing, and so they can see their progress. But that is what every single one of your students wants. It's what you want. It's what Mila wants. It's what I want. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it that way. But if you honestly look at your life, if you're making progress, you're happy. If you're making progress in terms of money, in terms of relationships, in terms of fun, relaxation, family, as long as you're making progress, and of course we all want more. We all want more and better everything. But as long as we're making progress, we are happy puppies. So that's what you want to make sure that you are absolutely passionate about your people making progress. And if that's what you're passionate about, you will win. It's only a question of time. It's only a question of time.
Yeah, I agree, because they always get stuck when they don't feel their progress. This is one of the questions teachers hear most often, like, I don't feel my progress. I don't feel my progress, because it's impossible to invest your time and efforts into something that you do not see any progress with. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for being with us today. We really appreciate. Um, Natalia, you haven't been scolded for guessing. I think you're overreacting a little bit. Yeah. So thank you very much for being with us today, and we will be waiting for you next Friday. Get ready to talk about self-esteem, and we hope to see you again. See you. Bye bye. And John, thank you for joining me today and for finding time for that.
До свидания.
Yes. Your Russian is getting better and
Thank you,
better.
everybody. Have the best week of your life.